my best friend became an influencer and let the fame go to her head. I tried to support her through the chaos, until she heartlessly exploited my mental breakdown for likes and clout. So I finally flipped the script and exposed her entire act with the unfiltered truth, and it destroyed her carefully curated image. She was the kind of friend who would bike to your place at 4 in the morning if you were crying on the phone, who would draft a birthday message a day in advance to dispatch precisely at midnight. Because of this, I always felt secure confiding everything in her. But then, once she reached that initial influencer milestone, hitting 10,000 followers, it was as if a switch had flipped. Everything became material for content. One time, I was completely distraught, weeping uncontrollably, and she started adjusting the bed to create the illusion that she was comforting me, snapped a picture, and then ignored me for the entire evening to respond to direct messages. On another occasion, she messaged me insisting I come over for an emergency. When I opened the door, I found her with her eyes rolling back and convulsing, a white substance in her mouth. I began hyperventilating and started dialing 911 on my phone, but that's when she stood up and grinned. "Haha, gotcha," she shrieked, then grabbed her phone from the corner of the room, which had recorded the whole incident. I suppose she noticed my irritation, because that's when she said, "Sorry, I hope you don't mind. Views have just been low lately." As if that was the most justifiable explanation in the world. Instead of confronting her, I simply nodded, convinced that my best friend would eventually revert to her old self. From that point, circumstances only worsened. After 2 months, she had subjected me to so much fabricated drama that I no longer reacted. She was on her 6th romantic partner that year when I reached my breaking point. I was genuinely surprised when that relationship lasted over 3 weeks, so much so that I invited them both to my dorm. I wanted to meet him, just in case he was my best friend's future spouse or something. I left them alone to prepare some instant noodles for us. As I was about to re-enter, I heard her laughing intensely, more heartily than she ever did with me. So, I pressed my ear to the door. It's as if one part of me is happy for my closest friend living her ambition, but the other half longs for how things once were. The moment I heard those words leave her boyfriend's mouth, my heart sank, because they weren't his. They were mine, and they were reading my journal. I was so taken aback that when I entered, I instinctively shifted into customer service mode. My voice became overly enthusiastic, my smile unnaturally wide, and my demeanor unsettlingly warm. Primarily, I felt so upset that the last thing I wanted was to cry in front of some random boy. And those fools fell for my act. As if I hadn't noticed my diary had moved from my shelf to directly on top of my pillow. As soon as they departed, I began to devise a scheme. I drafted an email template outlining why a brand should sponsor my best friend and sent it to every beauty and apparel business I could locate. Almost all of them responded affirmatively, because in my pitch, I included Lisa's, my former best friend's, proven history of boosting brand revenue by 200%. I suppose being in event planning truly does prove useful, because over the next few weeks, I spent my entire savings organizing Lisa's influencer partnership launch. Approximately 20 major brands, whose names you likely recognize, along with 60 smaller ones, were in attendance. So, when the day finally arrived, I messaged Lisa the venue. Except I told her it was the location of a gym and instructed her to wear sweats and an old t-shirt because we were taking a spin class together. Consequently, when the brands anticipated seeing a polished, 23-year-old self-made woman, they were instead confronted with a sweaty girl in the most unkempt attire imaginable, arriving an hour late. The instant she walked in, I shouted, "The woman of the hour, welcome Lisa." She looked around utterly bewildered, and that's when all the brands approached her, eager to network. "Lisa, don't be shy. All these brands want to hear how you single-handedly increased the revenue of Gymshark and L'Oreal." The flicker of panic in her eyes was more satisfying than any apology she could have offered me. That's when I assisted her. "Lisa, get on stage. That way, you won't have to keep re-explaining everything." She walked on awkwardly, grasping the microphone and preparing herself for the Q&A. In just 10 minutes, the initial excitement in the room had completely dissipated. I even observed one of the brand representatives roll their eyes. Within an hour, they had all concocted some excuse to depart and never return. "What the heck did you just do?" she shrieked the second the door closed. "Oh, the same thing you did to me when you read my journal." Her eyes widened, and her hand flew to cover her mouth. "Oh, yep, I hope this taught you a little lesson about privacy," I stated with a grin. As I drove home that evening, I genuinely believed I had taught her a lesson, that everything was right with the world. But it wasn't, because when I awoke the next morning, my phone nearly fell off my nightstand from how intensely it was vibrating. Lisa had informed all her followers that I was obsessed with her, that I had tried to make a move on her when we were children, and ever since she rejected me, I hadn't stopped stalking her, following her everywhere. The narrative was entirely fabricated but delivered with such convincing tears and reluctant disclosure that her followers believed every word. She detailed years of supposed harassment, asserting she'd been too afraid to speak up until now, portraying herself as the long-suffering victim of my dangerous fixation. The video had already accumulated hundreds of thousands of views. Her followers, eager to defend their favorite content creator, had located all my social media accounts. My inbox was inundated with hateful messages, threats, and demands that I leave Lisa alone. People I'd never encountered were scrutinizing years of my online presence, twisting innocent photographs and comments into evidence of my alleged obsession. The subsequent few weeks blurred into a haze of anxiety and isolation. Friends ceased returning my messages, classmates whispered when I entered rooms, and professors gave me concerned glances during lectures. Lisa's followers continued their digital witch hunt, some even contacting my workplace and the university administration with complaints about my threatening behavior. I continued composing my blog posts, pouring out my heart while being careful not to include any identifying details. The blog had been my private sanctuary for years, a place to process my thoughts without judgment. Now, it became my lifeline, the only space where I could tell my side of the story, even if indirectly. I wrote about companionship, betrayal, and the detrimental nature of social media fame, all thinly veiled as fiction or general observations. My sixth post, The Digital Burning Stake, How Social Media Enables Modern Witch Hunts, went viral on Reddit. Someone had shared it in r/true off my chest, and within days, it had over 50,000 upvotes. The post examined how social media mobs form, how accusations become facts without proof, and how the court of public opinion often delivers verdicts without due process. I never explicitly mentioned Lisa or my specific situation, but the parallels were evident to anyone who read between the lines. "This is exactly what happened to my cousin," one commenter wrote under the username TruthSeeker42. One person with a following can destroy someone's entire life with a few well-placed falsehoods. The comment garnered thousands of upvotes and ignited a lengthy discussion about cancel culture and the accountability of influencers. I experienced a peculiar sense of vindication seeing others connect with my experience, even if they didn't realize it was mine. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel utterly alone. The supportive comments and shared experiences created a virtual community of individuals who comprehended the harm false accusations could inflict. I found myself checking the post multiple times daily, drawing strength from the discussions occurring in the comment section. Then came the message that made my stomach clench. Is this about Lisa Perry? Because it sounds exactly like what she did to that stalker girl. The comment appeared on my most recent blog post. My fingers froze over the keyboard, my breath catching in my throat as I stared at the words on the screen. Someone had made the connection. Someone had recognized the situation despite my meticulous anonymization. Within hours, more followed. OMG, I was thinking the same thing. Wait, are you the girl Lisa exposed? This has to be about that influencer drama from last month. The comments multiplied, each one escalating my anxiety. My safe haven was being breached, the thin veil of anonymity threatening to completely unravel. I panicked and called Janet, the counselor from the Women's Center who had been assisting me in navigating the repercussions of Lisa's accusations. The phone rang 3 times before her calm, steady voice answered. I explained the situation in a rush of words, my voice rising with each sentence. "Don't delete anything," she advised, her voice calm and steady. "You haven't named anyone. You haven't defamed anyone. You're simply telling your story. They can speculate all they want, but they can't prove anything." Her reassurance was like a life raft in the stormy sea of my panic, something solid to cling to amidst the chaos. But what if Lisa sees it? What if she sues me? My voice cracked as I paced my small dorm room. The walls seemed to be closing in, the space shrinking with each anxious step. Outside my window, students walked to class, laughing and talking, their lives continuing normally, while mine felt like it was imploding. For what? Writing fiction? Because that's what you've officially been doing, unless you've included specific identifying details I told you to avoid. She has no case. Janet's legal background before becoming a counselor lent weight to her words. She elucidated the distinction between defamation and creative expression, between specific accusations and general observations. I reviewed my posts again, scanning for anything that could definitively link them to Lisa. I had been careful to alter enough specifics, locations, timelines, even the nature of the retaliatory act. I described it as a failed surprise party rather than a fake brand event. It was discernible to anyone who knew the true narrative, but legally distinct. The characters in my blog had different ages, backgrounds, even different colored hair. I had established just enough separation to maintain plausible deniability. Still, I was terrified. I adjusted my posting schedule and incorporated more fictional elements to mislead people. I introduced entirely fabricated characters and scenarios, blending them with aspects of my real experience to construct a narrative patchwork that would be difficult to unravel. I changed the setting from a university to a workplace, altered the timeline, and added plot points that had never occurred in reality. But it was too late. My blog had captured the attention of Lisa's followers. They began dissecting every post, searching for clues to confirm I was the stalker from Lisa's videos. Screenshots of my writing appeared in their group chats, with amateur detectives highlighting phrases they deemed suspicious or revealing. The online scrutiny intensified, with people comparing writing styles, timestamps, and thematic elements to build their case against me. Then Lisa herself addressed it in a live stream, her perfectly contoured face filling my screen. The notification had appeared on my phone. Lisa Perry is now live. And despite my better judgment, I found myself clicking, drawn to watch like a moth to a flame. Her room was impeccably arranged, as always, soft lighting illuminating her features, a vase of fresh flowers strategically placed in the background. "So many of you have been sending me this blog," she said, rolling her eyes dramatically. "Yes, I've seen it. And yes, it's obviously written by you-know-who. Some people just can't move on, you know? They have to keep obsessing and creating these weird fantasy versions of reality." She laughed, flipping her hair. The casual dismissal stung more than outright anger would have, the way she reduced my pain to a punchline. "Remember when we were kids and she used to follow me around everywhere? She even wore the same clothes as me to school sometimes. It was so creepy." Her voice adopted a conspiratorial tone, as if sharing secrets with thousands of her closest friends. My hands clenched into fists as I watched her fabricate new details, adding layers to her already false narrative. That had never happened. She was inventing new falsehoods, embellishing her story to make me sound even more unstable. We hadn't even attended the same school until high school, and by then, we were already friends. The blatant fabrication made my blood boil, but also sent ice through my veins. If she could lie so effortlessly about verifiable facts, what else would she claim? And now she's writing this pathetic blog where she's the victim? Please. She literally tried to sabotage my career. She literally pretended to be me in emails. Who does that? Lisa continued ranting, becoming more animated, her hands gesticulating wildly, her voice rising with indignation. The comment section filled with supportive messages, her followers eager to reinforce her version of events. And you know what's really sad? She keeps writing about how I supposedly changed after getting followers. Like, no sweetie, I just finally got the confidence to set boundaries with someone who was literally obsessed with me. The casual cruelty in her voice was like a physical blow. She had twisted our years of genuine friendship into something sinister, rewriting our shared history to cast herself as the victim and me as the antagonist. Then she uttered something that made my blood run cold. "Remember that pink diary she always carried around? The one with the little lock that she thought kept her creepy thoughts private? Maybe I should share some of what was actually in there. Then everyone would understand why I had to cut her off." Her eyebrows raised suggestively, her lips curling into a smirk that promised further humiliation. My heart pounded in my chest. She wouldn't. She couldn't. Those were my private thoughts, my deepest vulnerabilities. The diary contained not just my feelings about Lisa, but my struggles with anxiety, my family problems, my insecurities, and hopes and dreams. The thought of those intimate reflections being ridiculed for entertainment made me physically ill, a wave of nausea washing over me as I continued watching, unable to look away. Actually, no, Lisa continued with a self-satisfied smirk. I'm not that petty, unlike some people who create whole fake events just to humiliate others. She tossed her hair again, positioning herself as the more magnanimous person, the mature one rising above the drama. The comments section flooded with praise for her restraint, her followers applauding her for taking the high road. But in her anger, Lisa had made a crucial error. She'd mentioned my pink diary with a level of detail I had never shared publicly, a detail that wasn't in any of her previous videos, a detail only someone who had actually seen and read my diary would know. In her eagerness to threaten me, she had exposed her own transgression. Within hours, clips of that specific moment from her live stream were circulating on Reddit and Twitter. People were beginning to question her narrative. Wait, how does she know what the diary looks like if she didn't read it? Didn't she claim the stalker made everything up? So how does she know about the diary? Something's not adding up here. The questions multiplied, spreading across platforms, gaining momentum with each share and retweet. Lisa Lies started trending on Twitter as people connected dots, discerning the pattern in her behavior. Her previous inconsistencies were brought to light, old contradictions resurfacing as viewers began to re-examine her story with more critical eyes. The unquestioning support she had enjoyed began to show cracks, with even some loyal followers expressing confusion about the diary slip. Lisa quickly posted a follow-up video claiming she'd seen me writing in it years ago. Her explanation was rushed and unconvincing, her usual composure replaced by a subtle nervousness as she attempted to mend the hole in her narrative. She spoke too rapidly, her eyes darting around rather than maintaining her usual direct gaze with the camera. Even her most devoted followers noticed the change in demeanor. But the damage was done. A seed of doubt had been sown. The unquestioning acceptance of her story had been disrupted, replaced by questions and skepticism. The tide was beginning to turn, slowly but perceptibly. The next morning, I received a message from someone named Mateo. Hey, you don't know me, but I was friends with Lisa 2 years ago before she ghosted me. I saw the clips going around about the diary thing. I believe you. Lisa did the same kind of thing to me and our friend group. Would you be willing to talk? The message appeared in my Instagram DMs from an account I didn't recognize. My first instinct was caution. This could be another of Lisa's followers attempting to trick me into saying something incriminating. I proceeded with wariness, asking for proof he knew Lisa. He sent me photos of them together from before I knew her well. The images showed a younger Lisa with a group of friends I'd never met at what appeared to be a music festival. Mateo was easily identifiable by his distinctive curly hair and warm smile. The photos predated her influencer fame, showing a more natural, less curated version of her that few of her current followers would recognize. We arranged to speak over video chat, and I was surprised to find he seemed genuine, with kind eyes and a nervous habit of running his hand through his curly hair. His apartment was visible in the background, modest, slightly messy, with textbooks stacked on a desk, suggesting he was a student. Nothing about him triggered my now well-developed warning signals. Lisa has a pattern, Mateo explained. She befriends people, uses them for content or connections, then discards them when they try to call her out. She twists the narrative to make them look crazy or obsessive. His voice held the resigned tone of someone who had processed his hurt and moved on, but still carried the lessons learned from the experience. Why are you contacting me now? I inquired, still wary of his intentions. My experiences had taught me to question everything, to look for hidden motives behind seemingly kind gestures. The afternoon sun streamed through my window, illuminating dust particles floating in the air as I waited for his response. Because it's gone too far. What she's doing to you is worse than anything she did to us. And honestly, that diary slip-up in her live stream was the first crack in her perfect victim facade. Some of us who've been silently watching think it might be time to speak up. He explained that he and others had been following the situation from afar, recognizing the patterns, but hesitant to involve themselves until now. Over the next week, 2 more former friends of Lisa's contacted me, Delilah and Harrison. Each had similar accounts of manipulation and public denigration when they attempted to distance themselves from her. Their experiences mirrored mine with unsettling similarity. The initial excessive flattery, the gradual transformation of the friendship into content, the swift and vicious reprisal when they voiced concerns. She told everyone I was stealing from her, Delilah explained, her voice still carrying the hurt from years ago. I lost most of my friends. I had to transfer schools. Delilah was a small woman with a soft voice and expressive eyes that revealed the pain she still carried. Her experience had occurred during their sophomore year of high school, long before Lisa had any significant social media presence. She claimed I was stalking her too, Harrison added with a bitter laugh. It's her go-to accusation when someone calls her out. Harrison was older than the rest of us, having met Lisa through a campus organization. His experience was more recent, occurring just before her influencer career began to flourish. The similarities between our stories were striking, revealing a clear pattern of behavior that had evolved but remained fundamentally the same. All three had remained silent until now because they feared the backlash from Lisa's expanding fan base. But seeing the questions about the diary had given them courage. The fissures in Lisa's meticulously constructed narrative had provided an opening, a possibility that they might actually be believed if they spoke up now. What if we all shared our stories together? I suggested during our group video call, the idea forming as I spoke. Not just me alone, but all of us who've been hurt by her. The thought of not facing this alone, of having others who understood and could corroborate the pattern of behavior, gave me a surge of hope I hadn't felt in weeks. They were hesitant but agreed to consider the risks. The risks were still substantial. Online harassment, potential damage to their reputations, the emotional toll of revisiting painful experiences. We agreed to take some time to weigh the implications before making any decisions. Meanwhile, I continued writing my blog, carefully documenting my experiences without naming names. Each post was a delicate balance between truth and fiction, reality and plausible deniability. I focused on the emotional impact of false accusations, the isolation of being targeted online, and the difficulty of defending oneself against a much more powerful adversary. Then came an unexpected development. Lisa's sixth boyfriend, the one who had read my diary with her, sent me a friend request on Instagram. His name was Felix. The notification appeared while I was working on a paper for my psychology class, the familiar ping drawing my attention to my phone screen. Seeing his name sent a jolt through me, a mixture of anger, curiosity, and weariness. I accepted with trepidation, my finger hovering over the screen for several seconds before tapping confirm. Part of me wanted to disregard it, to maintain the distance between myself and anyone connected to Lisa, but another part was curious about his intentions, wondering what could have prompted this outreach after everything that had transpired. I know you probably despise me, his first message read. I deserve that. But I need to tell you I'm sorry for what happened with the diary. And for what it's worth, I don't believe what Lisa is saying about you. The message appeared immediately after I accepted his request, suggesting he had been awaiting the connection to be established. I was suspicious, recalling how he'd laughed while reading my most private thoughts. The memory of his voice reciting my words, the sound of their combined laughter echoing through my dorm room, was still fresh and painful. My fingers hovered over the keyboard as I considered how to reply, or whether to reply at all. Why are you contacting me now? I finally responded, opting for directness. The question was simple but laden with all the hurt and anger I'd been carrying. The three dots appeared immediately, indicating he was typing a response. Because I've been seeing your blog posts, at least I think they're yours, and they made me realize how messed up everything was. Lisa and I broke up a week after that day at your dorm. She started treating me the same way she treated you. His response came in several parts, each message appearing quickly after the last as he explained his situation. Felix clarified that Lisa had manipulated him too, using him for content and then discarding him when he questioned her behavior. He'd been following the unfolding drama from afar, watching as Lisa's falsehoods began to unravel. His own experience with her had opened his eyes to the patterns I described in my blog, making him realize the role he had played in harming me. I have something that might help you, he wrote. Lisa invited me over last week. She thought I wanted to get back together, but I really wanted to see if she'd admit what she did to you. The message was followed by a file attachment icon, an audio recording. My heart rate increased as I stared at it, unsure whether to trust him enough to listen. He sent me an audio file. With shaking hands, I pressed play. Lisa's voice came through clearly. "Oh my God, have you seen that pathetic blog everyone thinks is written by her? It's so obviously her. That pathetic loser who couldn't handle that I was more successful than her." The venom in her voice was palpable. The mask of the victim completely dropped in what she thought was a private conversation. "Felix, yeah, I've read it. Some of it seems pretty accurate, though." His voice was cautious, probing, clearly trying to get her to reveal more without alerting her to his true intentions. Lisa, laughing, "Whatever. None of it matters. They'll always believe me over her. I have the platform. I have the followers. She's just some random nobody." The casual cruelty in her voice was shocking, even after everything I'd experienced. The raw honesty of her statement, admitting that her power came from her platform, not from telling the truth, was damning. "Felix, but what about the diary thing? People are saying you slipped up." His question was direct, addressing the very issue that had started to turn the tide of public opinion. "Lisa, please. I'll just say I misspoke, or that you showed it to me once. My followers will believe anything I tell them. That's the power of being an influencer." Her confidence was chilling, the calculated way she planned to manipulate her audience, revealing the extent of her deception. I listened to the recording 3 times, tears streaming down my face. Here was proof, actual proof that Lisa was lying, that she knew exactly what she was doing. The validation after weeks of being disbelieved was overwhelming, a mixture of relief and renewed anger washing over me in waves. "Did you record this without her knowing?" I asked Felix. The legal implications immediately occurred to me, tempering my excitement with practical concerns. If the recording was obtained illegally, it might be unusable in any formal capacity. "Yes," he admitted. "Probably not legal, but I was so angry about how she was treating you, how she treated me." His honesty was refreshing after so much deception. He acknowledged the problematic nature of his actions while standing by his intentions to help. I thanked him, but explained I couldn't use an illegally obtained recording. The risks were too great. Potential legal consequences, further ammunition for Lisa to portray me as unethical, the possibility of undermining the credibility I was slowly rebuilding. Still, hearing Lisa admit the truth gave me renewed determination. Even if I couldn't share the recording publicly, knowing the truth for certain strengthened my resolve to continue fighting. The next day, I received an email from the university. The investigation into Lisa's harassment claims had concluded, and they found insufficient evidence to support her allegations. My housing suspension was lifted. The formal language of the email couldn't mask the significance of the decision. The university had essentially determined that Lisa's claims weren't credible enough to warrant continued action against me. It wasn't a complete vindication, but it was something, a small victory in the larger battle, a step toward reclaiming my life and reputation. I read the email multiple times, each reading bringing a fresh wave of relief. The weight that had been pressing on my chest for weeks eased slightly, allowing me to take a full breath for the first time in what felt like forever. When I returned to campus, things had subtly shifted. The whispers hadn't ceased entirely, but their tone had changed. Lisa's diary slip-up had made some people question her story. The university's decision had given others pause. A few former friends even reached out to apologize for believing her so quickly. "I should have asked for your side before jumping to conclusions," my lab partner Emma wrote in a tentative text. "I'm really sorry." Such messages were rare but meaningful, small indicators that the tide of opinion was slowly turning. But Lisa wasn't going down without a struggle. She posted a tearful video claiming she was being harassed by anonymous accounts, and that her stalker was now creating fake recordings to damage her reputation. The video was masterfully produced, with perfect lighting highlighting her glistening tears, dramatic pauses timed for maximum emotional impact, and a carefully selected outfit that made her appear vulnerable and innocent. Her most devoted followers doubled down, sending me fresh waves of hateful messages. "Leave her alone. Get help, psycho. We know what you're doing." The messages flooded my inbox, each one a reminder that many people still believed her narrative completely. The university's decision and the questions about her diary slip were dismissed as further evidence of my supposed influence and manipulation. That's when Delilah made a bold choice. I'm tired of being afraid, she told me over coffee, the afternoon sun highlighting the determination in her eyes. I want to tell my story on your blog. The campus coffee shop buzzed with activity around us, students studying and socializing, oblivious to the significant moment unfolding at our corner table. Harrison and Mateo agreed to join her. We decided to publish a joint post titled, "The Pattern." 3 former friends speak out. They each recounted their experiences with Lisa, the excessive flattery, the exploitation for content, the smear campaigns when they attempted to establish boundaries. Their stories spanned different time periods, different contexts, but shared striking similarities that couldn't be dismissed as coincidence. We published it on a Friday night. By Saturday morning, it had been shared thousands of times across multiple platforms. The post included only first names and no direct links to Lisa's accounts, maintaining the thin veil of plausible deniability while making the subject unmistakable to anyone familiar with the situation. Each story was detailed and specific, providing concrete examples of behavior that matched exactly what I had experienced. Lisa's response was swift and desperate. She posted a 3-part video series calling us all liars, claiming we were conspiring against her out of jealousy. She even produced screenshots of threatening messages I had supposedly sent her, messages that were clearly fabricated, with timestamps that didn't match any possible time I could have sent them. The font was slightly different from the platform's standard text, the formatting inconsistent with genuine messages. These discrepancies were quickly pointed out by observant viewers, further undermining her credibility. Her hastily constructed defense was crumbling. Too many inconsistencies had accumulated, too many former friends had similar stories. The carefully crafted image she'd built was fracturing under the weight of collective truth. Each attempt to reinforce her narrative only revealed new contradictions, new holes in her story that observant followers were increasingly unwilling to ignore. Then came the masterstroke. Delilah, who had maintained some peripheral contact with Lisa through mutual friends, received an invitation to Lisa's apartment. She wants to clear the air about everything that's happening, Delilah told me, showing me the text. She doesn't know I'm working with you. The message was casual, friendly, Lisa's typical approach when trying to manipulate a situation back under her control. It could be a trap, I warned, concern tightening my chest. She might be trying to get you to say something she can use against you. The risks were significant. Lisa could record their conversation, edit it to alter the context, use it to portray Delilah as the aggressor or manipulator in their relationship. Or, Delilah said with a determined look, it could be my chance to get her to admit what she did on record. Her eyes held a steely resolve I hadn't seen before, the quiet strength of someone who had been silenced once and refused to let it happen again. We spent hours discussing the risks. Eventually, Delilah decided to go, with her phone recording in her pocket and a clear exit strategy if things went awry. We established check-in protocols, code words for distress, and a timeline for when I should be concerned if I didn't hear from her. The planning was meticulous, addressing every contingency we could imagine. The meeting took place the following evening. I paced my dorm room the entire time, checking my phone every 30 seconds, terrified for Delilah's safety. Each minute felt like an hour, my imagination conjuring increasingly dire scenarios as time passed. What if Lisa realized Delilah was recording? What if she became confrontational? What if she had others there to intimidate Delilah? When she finally texted, "I'm out. Got it," I nearly collapsed with relief. The 3 simple words released the tension that had been building in my body for hours. I responded immediately, arranging to meet her as soon as possible to hear what had transpired. We met at a 24-hour diner off campus. Delilah looked shaken but triumphant as she placed her phone on the table between us, the fluorescent lights casting shadows across her face. Her hands trembled slightly as she navigated to the recording, but her eyes were clear and determined. "Listen to this," she said, pressing play. The recording was crystal clear. After some initial small talk, Lisa had launched into a rant about that stupid blog and how it was ruining everything she'd built. Her voice came through the speaker with perfect clarity, each damning word unmistakable. "Lisa, it's so obvious it's her, that pathetic loser who couldn't handle that I was more successful than her." The venom in her voice was palpable. The mask of the victim completely dropped in what she thought was a private conversation. "Delilah, But some of what she wrote seems true, about the diary and everything. Delilah's voice was carefully neutral, giving Lisa space to either confirm or deny the allegations without feeling directly challenged. Lisa, laughing, "Oh, please. So what if I read her stupid diary? Everyone's acting like that's such a big deal." She left it out. What was I supposed to do? Not read it? The casual admission was stunning in its nonchalance, as if invading someone's privacy was so insignificant it barely warranted mention. "Delilah, so you did read it?" The question was direct, but delivered in a tone of simple curiosity rather than accusation. Lisa, obviously. But that doesn't justify what she did after, the whole fake brand event, humiliating me in front of actual companies. She could have ruined my career before it even started. Her indignation was rich with irony, considering the damage she had done to my reputation and mental well-being. "Delilah, but in your videos, you said she made up the diary thing, that she was obsessed with you." The gentle reminder of her public statements contrasted sharply with her private admissions. Lisa, dismissive, "Yeah, well, you have to fight fire with fire. None of it matters anyway. They'll always believe me. I have 500,000 followers now, thanks to this drama. My engagement is through the roof." The calculated nature of her approach was chilling, the explicit acknowledgement that truth was irrelevant, that only power and influence mattered. The recording continued for another 15 minutes, with Lisa freely admitting to manipulating her audience, fabricating threats, and deliberately trying to get me expelled from school. She detailed how she had crafted her victim narrative, how she had timed her tearful videos for maximum impact, how she had coordinated her followers' attacks without explicitly directing them. The level of premeditation was shocking, even after everything I had experienced. "This is it," I whispered, the greasy diner coffee forgotten between my hands. "This is everything." The recording was the irrefutable evidence we had been hoping for, undeniable proof of Lisa's deception and manipulation in her own words, without ambiguity or room for misinterpretation. We debated what to do with the recording. Like Felix's, it had been made without consent and might not be legally usable. But unlike his, this one had Delilah as an active participant in the conversation. The legal implications were complex, varying by state and circumstance. We needed to be careful about how we proceeded. After consulting with Janet, we decided to transcribe key portions and publish them anonymously on the blog, being careful to frame it as alleged statements rather than confirmed recordings. We didn't post the audio itself, but described its contents in detail. The post was meticulously worded, reviewed by Janet for potential legal issues, and designed to present the information without making definitive claims that could lead to legal action. The post went live under the title "The Mask Slips." Inside the mind of a social media manipulator. Within hours, it had been shared across multiple platforms, igniting fierce debate in comment sections everywhere. The transcribed quotes were damning enough on their own, revealing a calculated approach to manipulation that shocked even those who had been skeptical of Lisa's claims from the beginning. Lisa's response was unhinged. She went live on Instagram, mascara streaming down her face, accusatory finger pointing at the camera as she ranted. Gone was the composed, strategic influencer who carefully crafted each piece of content. In her place was someone desperate and cornered, lashing out in all directions. "They're all lying," she shrieked, her voice cracking. "They're just jealous of my success. They've been planning this for months." The carefully applied makeup that was her trademark began to smudge as she grew more agitated, her perfect image literally and figuratively disintegrating on camera. But her performance wasn't landing the way it used to. The comment section was filled with skepticism. "This seems like a meltdown, not a defense. Why not address the specific claims instead of just calling everyone liars? I've followed you for a year, but something isn't adding up." The blind support she had enjoyed was eroding, replaced by questions and doubt. The tide was turning, slowly but surely. Brands began quietly unfollowing her. Her engagement rate dropped. People were unsubscribing from her channels in noticeable numbers. The metrics she valued above all else, followers, likes, views, were declining steadily, a digital representation of her waning influence. Then came the significant blow. One of the beauty brands that had attended my fake launch event, Luminous Beauty, released a statement. "In light of recent allegations, Luminous Beauty has decided to pause our relationship with content creator Lisa Perry while we evaluate the situation. We take claims of bullying and manipulation seriously. The carefully worded corporate statement represented a significant shift, a major brand publicly distancing themselves from Lisa, legitimizing the concerns raised in our blog. Other brands followed suit over the next few weeks. Within a month, Lisa had lost several sponsorships. Her follower count, while still substantial, had dropped by nearly 20%. Through it all, I maintained my anonymity on the blog. I never confirmed I was the author, never used real names, never crossed the line into definite legal territory. But everyone knew, and increasingly, people believed my version of events. The university finally completed its full investigation and officially cleared me of all harassment allegations. The no-contact order remained in place, which was fine by me. I never wanted to speak to Lisa again anyway. The official clearance allowed me to fully return to campus life, to attend classes without the cloud of suspicion, to begin rebuilding the social connections that had been damaged by Lisa's accusations. As Lisa's influence waned, my blog continued to expand. I moved beyond just telling my story, writing about broader themes of friendship, betrayal, and the toxicity of social media culture. Readers connected with my raw honesty and vulnerability. The community that formed around the blog became a source of support and validation, a space where people shared their own experiences with online harassment and false accusations. One evening, as I was working on a new post in the library, I received an email from a literary agent named Zoe Schneider. "I've been following your blog with great interest. Your voice is compelling and authentic in a way that's rare to find. I believe your story could make an impactful memoir. Would you be interested in discussing representation?" The email was professional but warm, expressing genuine interest in my writing and perspective. I stared at the screen in disbelief, the cursor blinking steadily as I read the message 3 times. From nearly being expelled to being offered a book deal, it seemed impossible. The trajectory of my life had changed so dramatically in just a few months, from victim to advocate, from silence to having a platform of my own. I showed the email to Janet, who helped me research Zoe's credentials. She was legitimate, a respected agent with several successful authors on her roster. Her client list included memoirists and essayists known for tackling difficult social issues with nuance and honesty. "This is your chance to reclaim your narrative completely," Janet said, squeezing my shoulder encouragingly. "To tell your story on your terms." Her support had been unwavering throughout the ordeal, her guidance instrumental in helping me navigate the complex emotional and practical challenges of being falsely accused. I agreed to meet with Zoe, who was even more enthusiastic in person. "Your blog resonates with people because it's not just about one toxic friendship. It's about power, social media manipulation, and resilience. That's a story worth telling in full." We met at a quiet cafe near campus, discussing potential approaches to the memoir and the themes it might explore. We discussed the potential legal implications of publishing a memoir. Zoe assured me we could work with lawyers to ensure everything was properly anonymized or framed as my perception of events rather than definitive claims. The goal wasn't to attack Lisa, but to tell my story authentically while exploring the broader social dynamics at play. As I walked back to my dorm after the meeting, the crisp autumn air filling my lungs, I spotted Lisa across the quad. She was alone, a rare sight for someone who used to be constantly surrounded by admirers. Her posture was different, less confident, more guarded. The carefully curated image she had maintained online was absent in person, replaced by someone who looked ordinary, even vulnerable. Our eyes met briefly. For a moment, I thought she might approach me, might try to confront me about the blog or the recordings or any of it. There was a flicker of something in her expression, recognition, perhaps regret, though I couldn't be sure. The distance between us felt both vast and insignificant, the culmination of a friendship destroyed by ambition and betrayal. Instead, she looked away first and hurried in the opposite direction, her shoulders hunched against an invisible weight. The power dynamic had shifted completely. Where once she had wielded her influence like a weapon, now she scurried away from direct confrontation. I felt no satisfaction in her downfall, no joy in her isolation, just a profound sense of relief that the truth had finally emerged and a quiet pride in my own resilience. The journey had been painful, The cost high, but I had survived. More than survived, I had found my voice, my strength, my community. That night, I wrote what would become the most shared post on my blog. It wasn't about Lisa at all. It was about forgiveness. Not for her, but for myself, for believing I deserved the treatment I received, for doubting my own worth when someone else tried to diminish it. The words flowed easily, a cathartic release of emotions I had been processing for months. I included excerpts from my actual diary entries I'd never shared with anyone, not even Lisa when she snooped through my private thoughts. Poignant reflections on friendship, loyalty, and self-worth that resonated deeply with readers. The vulnerability was terrifying but liberating, a reclamation of the private thoughts that had been violated. The post went viral in a different way than the expose had. People shared it not out of outrage or malicious glee, but because it touched something universal in them. The comment section filled with stories of similar experiences, of healing and moving forward. Readers connected with the message of self-forgiveness and resilience, finding echoes of their own struggles in my words. 3 months after Lisa's first video accusing me of stalking her, she quietly reduced her social media presence. Her Instagram posts became infrequent. Her YouTube channel remained, but featured less personal content. Her TikTok posts dwindled to occasional attempts at recapturing her former glory. The power she had wielded so carelessly was diminishing, not in a dramatic cancellation, but in a slow fade of relevance. Meanwhile, I signed a book deal under my pen name. The advance wasn't life-changing, but it covered a significant portion of my final year's tuition. More importantly, it represented a future built not on likes and followers, but on truth, resilience, and genuine connection. The contract sat on my desk, a tangible symbol of how far I had come from the darkest days of Lisa's accusations. Janet threw a small celebration party at the Women's Center when I signed the contract. "I'm proud of you," she told me, "not just for surviving this, but for transforming it into something meaningful." Her words meant more than she knew, validation from someone who had seen me at my lowest and supported my journey to recovery. Delilah, Harrison, and Mateo were there too, new friends forged in the crucible of shared experience. Our connection was unique, built on mutual understanding of what it meant to be manipulated and discarded by someone we had trusted. There was a comfort in their company that I couldn't find elsewhere, a shorthand of shared experience that needed no explanation. Even Felix showed up briefly, still carrying the guilt of his role in the diary incident, but working to make amends. His presence was a reminder that people could change, could recognize their mistakes, and try to do better. His awkward but sincere attempts at friendship were a small but meaningful part of my healing process. As the party wound down, I checked my blog's analytics. The latest post had over 100,000 views. Comments continued to pour in from people finding strength in my words, seeing their own experiences reflected in mine. The community that had formed around my writing was a source of constant amazement, strangers connecting through shared experiences, supporting each other in ways large and small. One comment in particular caught my eye. "I used to follow Lisa religiously. I believed everything she said about you. I even sent you a hateful message once. I'm so sorry. Your writing has shown me how easily I was manipulated, how quickly I judged someone I knew nothing about. Thank you for your courage and telling your story." The humility and honesty of the comment touched me deeply, a reminder that growth and change were possible even in the most unlikely circumstances. I smiled as I typed a reply. "Thank you for your honesty. We've all believed things we shouldn't at some point. What matters is our willingness to reconsider when presented with new information." The exchange exemplified what my blog had become, not just a platform for my story, but a space for reflection, growth, and connection. The next week, I passed Lisa on campus again. This time, instead of looking away, I met her gaze steadily, not with anger or triumph, but with clarity. The fear that had once gripped me in her presence was gone, replaced by a calm certainty in my own truth. Our shared history couldn't be erased, but it no longer had power over me. She was the one who looked down first, hurrying past with hunched shoulders. I felt no desire to call out to her, no urge to confront her or demand an apology I knew would never come.